cannot serve God and mammon, right? A lot of us learn it with that Aramaic word, mammon. Not this translation to the word wealth in our version today. Wealth is a fine word for it, but wealth, well, we can debate who's wealthy, who's not wealthy. Are we a little bit wealthy, a lot wealthy, who's wealthier? There's a lot of discussion about what wealth really is. Mammon, if we understand that Aramaic word, is very direct, very simple. Mammon means property, your stuff, your belongings, your things, anything you own, anything that belongs to you, that is mammon. Doesn't exactly mean that this lesson is just for those who are wealthy, but for any of us who has even a little bit of stuff. Now, forgive me for referring to a comedian, but comedians are a bit like the court jesters of old. The court jester gets away with saying that bit of truth to the king or queen that the king or queen won't let anybody else say to him or her, and they don't lose their head at the end of the evening. The court jester always got away with naming the truth about a situation. And so I think today, comedians can often do the same thing. So allow me to tell you in George Carlin's words about stuff. George Carlin of blessed memory has a spicier version of this bit. I have taken out those unsavory bits for this morning because I think this comedian gets right to the truth about us and our belongings in a way we don't often admit to. Have you heard this piece before on stuff? Anybody? He says something like this, and I won't do it justice. I don't have his eyebrow that flies way out across his forehead at this time. But these are his words. That's all I want, that's all you need in life is a little place for your stuff, you know? I can see it on your table. Everybody's got a little place for their stuff. This is my stuff, that's your stuff, that'll be his stuff over there. It's all you need in life. A little place for your stuff. That's all your house is, a place to keep your stuff. If you didn't have so much stuff, you wouldn't need a house. You could just walk around all the time. A house is just a pile of stuff with a cover on it. You can see that when you're taking off in an airplane. You look down and you see everybody's got a little pile of stuff, all the little piles of stuff. And when you leave your house, you gotta lock it up. Wouldn't want somebody to come by and take some of your stuff. And they always take the good stuff, the shiny stuff. That's what your house is, a place to keep your stuff while you go out and get more stuff. He names it. He names that sometimes our stuff owns us. Sometimes our belongings enslave us. Sometimes the things of life seem to take over and take control of us. And it's kind of funny to be made fun of by somebody like George Carlin. You can listen to his bit and you can laugh and relate to how carried away we all get with stuff. And then after you finish hearing it, you go home to your stuff and nothing changes. It's just kind of fun to laugh about. Jesus pointed out the same truth about people and their stuff. But unlike George Carlin, he called us to do something different about it. He called us to look at it, to look at our relationships with stuff, and then to go home and live differently. Unlike a comedian or a court jester, Jesus expected us to take action. Jesus held that mirror, if you will, up to us and our lives so that we could understand them better and then go and live differently. He showed us that when we're not in right relationship with our stuff, then we're not in right relationship with God. All of the stuff of our lives, all of our belongings and our possessions, they're not necessarily bad things. It says here that God knows we need those things. We need these things to live. Not all of them, but we need many of these things as a way to live. When they stop serving us and the purpose that God intends for us, then we need to step back and make some changes. That is what our gospel is about today, getting in right relationship with your stuff so that you can continue to live into that disciple ministry that God has called you into. And if the stuff is getting in the way of doing the ministry that God has called us into, then we need to make some changes. Now, the ministry that we've all been called into, and it's very clear in our gospel today, is the building of the kingdom of God. Moving our own lives, And Jesus came to earth to invite us to get in right relationship with that effort, to make that our purpose too as his disciples. That's why he's teaching about this. He's teaching us to go back and look at our relationship to stuff and property and figure out if it lines up with kingdom purposes. I had a great evening on Monday night. Do you remember Monday night was kind of our youth program here who are going to be confirmed? And luckily Pete Redu, another member of the community, was driving, and something changed in the weather. It dropped a couple degrees, and I said to Pete, being from California, Pete, what do you call this? You know, the stuff that's hitting the windshield. I wasn't quite sure if it was hail or sleet, and he said, this is sleet, Peanut. This is sleet. Do you remember that night how cold it was and how the weather turned and whipped up, and then Tuesday morning we had all that snow? Well, Monday night, just before the weather turned, we had taken these young women over to Linden Lane United Methodist Church in Clarksville, right there on 108. And being that it was an awful night, it seemed even more fitting that we experienced what we experienced. We went there, we thought we were going to roll up our sleeves and really help these good folks out at the Methodist Church as they set up for the Grassroots Winter Shelter Program. They host it for 1 week each winter. Different churches around Howard County, different congregations, they're not all Christian. Different communities host this in their buildings. They use their property to shelter people who do not have homes over the winter. But they had already set everything up. They already had all the mats over there for the men and the mats over there for the women, and the couple, they had a set of mats over there. There were no children that week because the family with children had the great blessing of moving into something a little more stable in terms of housing through Grassroots, which is really a blessing. But the other guests that were there, these 9 folks who do not have homes this winter on that cold and awful night, were there at this Methodist church to be sheltered and to be fed. They had opened up their property and given shelter and made food and welcomed them for the week. We had the great honor of experiencing how they use their stuff. The lasagna, the salad, the sodas, the cookies. We shared in this great meal, and I remembered just something I learned in church history class, which is the medieval church often did that kind of thing. The medieval church, the buildings were seen as a place of shelter. If you were traveling along as a pilgrim from one place to the next, you would look for a church building, and you would curl up on that pew or find a corner in that quiet, open space. They were always left unlocked, and you would sleep there and find comfort on a terrible night. Or perhaps you were sick and you would be brought to the cathedral that also served as a hospital. And while the big liturgies are going on downstairs there in the cathedral, up in a gallery much like this, people would be tending the sick and the dying. And over here it would be like a university. Students would be learning and growing in faith and learning about the world around them. These were dynamic places. They used the property of the church to educate, to tend the sick, to be a place of solace for a traveling pilgrim. They were also the place where, when accused of a crime, you could run to for sanctuary, right? Sometimes even just hanging on to the knocker would be enough for safety. The church property, our property as individuals, is all intended to offer those things still in our day and age. We are still called to offer shelter, to tend the sick, to use the resources at our disposal to do that ministry in the lives of others that brings us inch by inch closer to the kingdom of God. Now, Jesus knew this was a big job. He knew this was a big thing to call us into. This is a huge endeavor, building up the kingdom of God. And so he gave us some advice. He said, worry about those things you can do today for the kingdom. Don't get carried away worrying about, oh no, are we going to have enough to eat tomorrow? What if we have more people who need to sleep here tomorrow? What if, what if, what if? Tomorrow will bring situations and challenges that you can't even imagine today. Isn't that true? Don't we know that from life? Leave Monday morning for Monday morning. Spend Sunday building up the kingdom on Sunday. be disciples who act to build the kingdom of God up inch